Good afternoon. Thank you very, very much for being here. At least it's not a rainy afternoon, but boy, it's nice to have the sun shining bright and all that. So you've done your usual. At like quarter of, nobody was here, and we were looking at each other and thought we'd maybe go for a glass of wine, and suddenly the room is just about full. So thank you so much for, we can still go for the glass of wine. My name is Susan Kirk. I'm a member of the Government Affairs Committee. Want to thank you again for being here to discuss important issues. Very important issues. 1/3 of the budget for Monroe County comes from the revenue of District 4. 1/3 of the budget. And school board is on your ballot for your primary in March. So very important. You want to know what's going on, how your money's being spent, and who the candidates are. That's what we are going to be handling today. So we're going to be meeting with officials. Unfortunately, Marcia Rapier, the property appraiser, needed to cancel due to something that came up in her schedule. We have school board, school board candidates Mitch Avery and Caleb Smart. Also, 3 candidates, they are from 4 to 5, with Dana Best from the elections office. Then we have from 5 to 6, we have 3 judicial candidates for District 10 for district attorney. And so we'll get into that after 5 o'clock. So the Governmental Affairs Committee, our other members in the room are Margaret Carroll, Chairman. Where are you, Margaret? And Vice Chair Mike Paulson, Scott Black, Greg Reddy, Steve Packwood, and Joe Bettencourt. In the room, we have POA, Bob Brunetti. Where'd you go, Bob? There he is, okay. And Chet Pillsbury has informed me he's on the way. There was a traffic accident on 72, so he will be here shortly. The Government Affairs Committee is a committee of 7, and our primary goal is to act as a liaison and advocate for the village, as an educator for elected officials, an educator to the villagers about concerns, issues that we need to be aware of. We serve as liaisons to organizations. We engage with officials, bringing Tellico Village issues to them for their consideration. So that is what we do and why we think it's important that we have this here today. I want to recognize and thank Kevin Critch. He is the person responsible for taping this live. It is also being recorded, so you can watch this again on YouTube to reiterate and hear again what you need to tell your neighbors, because take a look at who's in the room. You're the people that people are going to go up to and say, hey, I missed that form. Who should I vote for? So come to watch YouTube. It'll be on YouTube. So let me explain the process a little bit. And each candidate will come up to the mic and do a self-introduction, and then we will go into questions and answers from you. So that is what that microphone is for. If you have a question, just go up to the microphone. Before you begin your question, please give us your name in case we need to get back to you with an answer. If they do not know it and want to provide follow-up, want to provide an answer later, we need to know who to get that answer back to. Also, let us know who you're directing the question to. That helps us a lot. So you can ask as many questions as you want. Just the mic isn't yours, so ask a question and get back in line, okay? Because other people like to ask questions too. So at this point, I would have introduced Chet Pillsbury. He's on the way, so we're going to have the self-introductions by the candidates, and so we will start with alphabetical order, Mitch Avery, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. The victim of your last name being starting with an A. I always had to sit in the front in the school as well. So who am I? Can you hear me? Am I on the microphone? Who am I? Well, my name is Mitch Avery. I solve financial problems. I implement and create financial plans and manage investments to help people achieve stated goals. I'm a CPA, been a financial advisor and / planner since 2003. My current firm is Flagship Harbor Advisors. We are an independent registered investment advisory group with LPL Financial. I'm a graduate of Von Orr High School, class of 1982, and a 1987 graduate of Auburn University with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a major in accounting. I was a little reluctant to say I have a BS degree, but I have a Bachelor of Science degree. Married for 33 years, have 3 daughters. That could explain the hairline. Being a business owner, a spouse, and a parent, and with numerous years of experience in various capacities, it's my belief that this experience would benefit me in the position that I seek, if fortunate enough to be chosen. My goal in seeking this position, having grown up and went to school in Von Orr, is to provide a voice with the Monroe County School Board, which we haven't had before, for the people in this district and in particular the town of Von Orr. It's a position we just haven't had this voice in the past. I'm not a professional educator, not a trained educator, nor do I profess to be. I'm of the opinion that any board, really, whether it's for a business or a nonprofit or whatever the case may be, is primarily responsible for ensuring that the properly trained professionals are in place to achieve a stated vision, goal, mission, whatever the case may be, and to do so in a safe and fiscally responsible manner. That's my belief. That's why I'm seeking this position. As the success of our schools, if you think it through, whether you have children in the schools or not, the future, our youth, it affects everyone in the community. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to stay in alphabetical order, but please recognize Dana Best is not a candidate. She is from the elections office. And so I'm going to let her introduce herself, give you an idea of the questions you can put to her and so forth. And I have a few other ideas for questions you can put to her, but that's a different announcement. Dana, come on up.
All right, my name is Dana Best. I'm with the Monroe County Election Commission. I didn't know I was going to have to speak tonight, but we're glad and so happy to have the opportunity to come talk to you guys. We have a new text messaging application that we want to introduce and get out there, so you can sign up to receive a message for like last day or first day and last day of early voting, when the sample ballot will be ready. So instead of having to get online or look on your phone, we'll just send all that information directly to you guys. If you have questions about when you can register to vote, anything like that, online voter registration, we'll be glad to answer any questions that you guys have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. And your second school board candidate is Caleb Smart. Come on up, Caleb.
Hello, everybody. Quite turnout here. I wasn't expecting to talk in front of this many people. My name's Caleb Smart. I'm a conservative Republican from right here in Von Orr. I was born and raised Monroe County. I grew up right across from the Von Orr McDonald's. I attended Von Orr Elementary School from first grade up till fifth grade, and I was part of the first class, or the first full year of Von Orr Middle School when they built it. I graduated from Sequoia High School in 2013 and joined the workforce. I have two children, 7 and 3, a boy and a girl. The boy's in second grade at Von Orr right now. The girl's about to join pre-K. The main reason I'm running is we've been having issues with school buses for the past 2 years, lack thereof. There's about 20 routes in the county that haven't been filled, and I've proposed a couple different options to it, and I've reached out to a bunch of different people about it, and I figured this would probably be the easiest way to get to the school board and help them find a solution. While I don't really consider myself a politically minded person, I think I'd give this a shot and see what I could do and help the community out as best I could, because I've lived here my whole life. I love this place, and I don't want to see it change. And it's kind of headed that way, I feel like. But sorry, I'm not too awful good at public speaking. But I'm sorry. Sorry. I mean, I work at a factory in Alcoa. I work at Alcoa Aluminum, and I've got 50 employees under me. So public speaking really isn't a problem for me because I do it all the time. But yeah, it's
You don't bite.
I appreciate that. But yeah, I prepared a short introduction. I didn't really want to do a whole speech. I just wanted to let you guys know who I am and what I'm about. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will get back with you in a minute with our questions. I'd like to recognize Ed Groleman, another POA board member, has entered the room, and Chet Pillsbury, our CEO, has come in, so he at least got by the accident. So Chet, come on up and say a few things that you wanted to get said, and then we'll go into questions and answers from there. Thank you.
First, it was a tractor sideways in the road, not an accident. But couldn't tell from where I was behind anyway. Couple things. I'm very excited that we have a committee in the community, the Government Affairs Committee, that sponsors these kinds of events, that allows the candidates to come in and talk to the Cahetians and all of Tellico Village specifically. And I appreciate their work and I appreciate what they do. We all are members of this community. We all are members of this county. We do have a responsibility to understand what's going on in our county and how it works and who are the people running it. And we also need to have a voice. I was at the Conservative Club this morning, and one of the things that I mentioned there was, if you want to change your world, vote locally. Very often, the folks in D.C. don't really know what's going on down here in Monroe County. But we do. And we need to vote that way. We need to listen to what people have to say, and we need to care about what goes on. And I'm very happy that it's obvious you do, and that's a great thing. So welcome, and please give these folks your attention and your time. I will say, don't hold back. Ask the hard questions. Believe me, you asked me those. Anyway, it's all good. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chet. The announcement I want to make is something that you may have additional questions for Dana, and her office has probably been dealing with this, but Senator Art Swan has announced his retirement, his resignation and retirement. He will carry out the end of his term. He is your senator for this district, and so that will be changing. So that is something, the filing period is April for that office, and so you need to pay attention to who's filing, who's considering running. There's already 2 names in the offing for that, and so heads up. And it's interesting when things shift and change in politics, and so you're going to want to pay attention when we have that forum, because we will. We'll have both of them together if it's a primary, a Republican primary, and that's the time for the Republicans or if they're Democrats, whatever. As far as I know, there hasn't been a Democrat mentioned in that race, but we'll see. You never know. So, but that's the time to ask them the questions. And then if and who is elected, when we bring them back as elected officials, you've seen us bring in the commissioners, Mitch Ingram, and so forth. That's when we hold them accountable with more questions. And so, so let us begin. So, game on. Questions. Who'd like to be first?
Hi. Thank you for running. Thank you for coming today so we could get to know you. I appreciate it. The Monroe County Buzz just published the academia rankings for this area, and Madisonville, Monroe County was really bad. So my question is, as a board, and this is for the board members, as a board candidates, as a board member, how do you see your role in improving academia here in this county, and how would you go about achieving that? Thank you.
Do you still want to stick with alphabetical order? Okay, we'll do you first. Next question, he'll have to go first. Go ahead.
Is it already on? Is it on yet? Well, thanks for the question. I saw the grades, and I know what you're referring to. A lot of time, those types of grades come from pool comparisons, and I sometimes think that it's not quite fair maybe to compare communities like ours with, say, a Maryville City Schools, for argument's sake. But to improve that and maybe get our district and our students up to a performance level like other school systems like that, it can be a lot of times community involvement. It'd be interesting to see, and I don't know the statistics, of how school systems like that, how many of the parents maybe have a higher education level and place a greater emphasis on education versus more rural communities that are concentrated more in manufacturing, farming, more hands-on types of environments. So this goes all the way back to when I was in school here. I don't know that education has always been given much of a priority, but I do believe a lot of community, much more community involvement would really, really help, whether it be from the businesses that are here or trying to educate parents even to the importance of education and how it helps kids, whether you're going to college, whether you're going to the military, whether you're going to start your own practice, your own business, whatever the case may be. Communication skills, knowing how to sell yourself, mathematical, financial, personal financial skills, all those are very, very important, whether we're preparing ourselves for college or whatever the case may be.
Caleb.
I completely agree with what he said. We do need more parent involvement in the community. I was, for the past 2 years, I've been on PTO at Monroe Elementary, and it's just been me and 3 other parents. And we've asked and asked and asked and can't get people to come out and help and want to help other people's kids and with school events, school dances and stuff like that. And I mean, it shows. The kids don't know what it's like that when we were growing up. All the parents would come to the dances and hang out, and it's not the same way as it was. And I really think that if that would change, it would reflect on the school's performance, the grades, everything. And I mean, the community also, like we do have good support from the factories in Von Orr, but I mean, if they had more educational support, they did more, they used to call them, they used to have big gatherings in the gym, and they would bring educational people in and teach them public speaking and stuff like that. And I don't think they do that anymore, and I believe that needs to change because it's not the way it used to be.
Next question.
Sure, you go right ahead. Whatever makes you comfortable. Just kind of a follow-up to your question. I'm aware of the grades. The school's got, Sequoia High School got a B, which I was kind of pleased with. And Von Orr Middle School got a B. And that kind of exceeded my expectations. But Von Orr Elementary School got a D. And I know on the school board, your job is to set policy and to hire and fire the school superintendent. So I have 2 questions, kind of unrelated. One is, what suggestions might you have for Dr. Windsor to specifically at least get Von Orr Elementary up to a C? I'm sure you're both aware of the criteria that was used. Question number 2 is, how aware are you of all the wonderful volunteerism that our Tahiti neighbors give to Von Orr Elementary? And specifically, I'd like you to comment on the magnificent Christmas marketplace that we put on every year. A lot of work.
Caleb, you're first this time.
Were you referring to like the Santa shop at Monroe Elementary that the Kahiti people put on? Yes, my wife helped with that this year, and I mean it is wonderful. It's there's a lot of kids in this community that are a lot less fortunate than other communities down in Citico and all that. I mean, it's a farming community down there, and people don't have a lot of money, so that Santa shop at least gives kids opportunities to give gifts and get gifts. And what was the question about Dr. Windsor?
I
Okay. I mean, that just falls back to the leadership part of it, what they're enforcing as far as the curriculum. I know that they've been through several principals in the past couple of years, and I know the new principals, they're wonderful ladies, and they're getting adjusted and making the changes they need to improve the curriculum and doing what they need to better the school as a whole. But as far as Dr. Windsor, I don't really know what could be done from her part, because it's I really think it's falling back on the principals at this point and the changes that they're making, because there's been so many changes in the past couple of years.
Okay, before we go to you, Mitch, I need to ask, who has the wonderful license plate BJ23430? It's on a white Lincoln. You want it up front because your car is blocking something. So a white Lincoln license plate BJ23430.
While you're making announcements, this microphone is a little bit less sensitive, so you need to get up real close to the microphone when speaking, okay, in order for it to activate.
Okay, so when you go up to that mic, get real close. The mic asking questions. Okay, again, BJ23430, white Lincoln, and hopefully someone maybe out in the court will become aware of that and move their vehicle. Okay, Mitch, sorry for the disturbance. That gave you more time to think, didn't it?
It did, but you had me worried about the vehicle. I was waiting for the color and description, because I wouldn't have a
No, still on?
testing.
There you go. There you go.
The grades on the elementary school, I was aware of and actually spoke to Dr. Windsor about that. And I think the turnover and the changes at Monroe Elementary School has had some impact on that. I do believe that what I had mentioned earlier, pool comparisons and the fact some of our kids are behind from the get-go, can affect things of that nature as well. But she's very conscientious of trying to put things in place to meet the standards put forth to improve all of our schools, especially those that have I wouldn't call that a failing grade, but it's certainly not a good grade, to bring those up to standard. And I forgot what the other, something about Christmas marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a part of that, not familiar with that. If it has to do with Christmas shopping, I'm sure my wife was there, but I really don't know the answer to that.
Okay. So, a question for elections. Explain to us the primaries, the March primary, the August primary, and then the general election.
So I am just the assistant administrator. James R. Brown is the administrator for Monroe County Election Commission. He's definitely more equipped to answer all of your questions, and he is the kind of man you can call and come to the office. He's willing to talk to anybody. We work for the public, but there is 2 primaries this year in March: the presidential primary and the county primary, and then August you'll have the state and federal primary. And then November, you will have your general elections. So when you come in, you'll be asked to declare which primary ticket that you want to vote on. I know that's different from other states. Some, when you register to vote, you will tell then what primaries that you want to vote in. But here in Tennessee, when you come in to vote is when you'll declare which ticket that you want to vote for.
Right. And something also to announce, Mitch, you are running as Republican? Correct. And Caleb, you are running as independent. And so this is the first year that a school board candidate has had to declare a party. It used to be a nonpartisan. It isn't any longer. Tallahassee, excuse me. Nashville felt that it was important that that be known. They changed the laws in the elections books. And so school board candidates now have to declare their party when they're running. So just for your information. Okay, next question. All right, I have one. Do you agree with the no phones policy, and how are cell phones handled with kids in schools now? Do you know? And what would you like to see happen in regard to that? Mitch, you're first.
I don't know how cell phones are handled in the schools now. I'm not sure I would agree with the no phones policy, simply because of the possible dangers of not having phones, with some of the things that unfortunately our communities have not been a part of. But nationwide, you see small school systems, I think one in Iowa recently, school shootings, things of that nature.
You
So
mean
I'm not
active shooter?
correct. So I'm not sure that I would want to have a no phone policy. As far, and I assume you mean no usage, not allowing to have a phone, period, is the way I'm understanding that question. So I would disagree with a no phone policy. I don't know if I have an answer of how you would administer or keep phones from being an interruption, but I don't agree with having a no phone policy.
Caleb?
I'm going to agree with that also. I believe that phones are a vital piece of technology today. I mean, they have several uses, but they are the biggest distraction in the world today because people keep their face in their phone and out of the real world. But I mean, as long as children aren't taking their phones out, playing games on them, and being distracted by them, and they're actually paying attention in class, then I don't see an issue with having the phone at school. But I could see where it would be a distraction.
Yeah, just try sitting at the dinner table at night.
Yes, ma'am.
It is becoming an issue in a lot of school districts, and that's why that question is out there. So, another question from the audience?
Thanks. Okay.
Nice and close, Mike.
I want to say, can you hear me now? But that's just too trite. Speaking of, you really got to get close to this thing, don't you? Still not going? No? Okay, well, I'll speak up. Obviously, school violence is a huge issue, and the active shooter issues. Do you believe Monroe County has taken appropriate precautions to deal with that? And if so, are they prepared for the next active shooter drill or an active shooter event?
Okay, it's your turn first, Caleb.
I mean, you can never be fully prepared for a situation like that because it's not something anybody ever expects. But I mean, I know that they do lockdowns. My son goes to school, and I believe they do a lockdown about once a month just to practice. And I mean, I believe we have an SRO in every school now, and I know several of them. And they're very well qualified, and they pay attention to just about everything coming in and out of the school. Just like Melinda Fowler out here at Monroe Elementary, she's right there at the front desk every time I walk in there. And I believe that they're taking all the precautions they possibly can. I don't know if they put locks on the classroom doors yet or not, but I thought that was something that they were going to do to help keep the doors locked and keep people out if there is somebody in the hallway. But yeah, I believe that they're doing all they can to prepare for it if it were to ever happen. But I mean, none of us hope that it does, but I believe they're preparing themselves very well.
And Mitch.
Difficult to say if they are prepared for something like that because we've not had it happen. But I think they've taken all the steps that they've been advised to take as far as drills, practices, SROs in the schools, access to buildings, locking doors. Was part of a committee recently to put a monument up of the two communities coming together, looking at things like internal door locks that they may not have in place now. So I think the more things like this happen, especially when it happens in a small community like Perry, Iowa, I believe is the name of the community, the more and more we discover other things that we are not aware of, just like that we were talking 9/11 a while ago. Whoever would have thought something like that would happen? But the school system, according to Dr. Windsor and a number of the teachers that I know, they have implemented and put in things in place that has been suggested that nationwide and other communities for sure.
Staying with that topic for just a moment, with the active shooter drills and so forth, running a drill with the sheriff's office and other emergency responders, do you feel the school board should participate in that drill? Mitch, you're first this time.
Had not thought about that before, but that's probably a good idea. board members are aware of things that are happening that, idea.
I believe so too. I believe it's the school board's job to come up with new innovative ways to deal with situations like that. I mean, there's countless ways that it could be dealt with, but I believe that they should definitely be involved in it and not just leave it up to the school and the SRO to come up with individual ideas for that school.
Okay. I have an elections question for you, Dana. I don't know if people are prepared for all the delegates they're going to find on the ballot. Would you like to explain that to them, please?
Yes. Again, when you come in to vote, it's all touchscreen. A few years ago, we had one where you had to roll past all the delegates. So it will be touchscreen, but there is a lot for each candidate on there, and they had to qualify to be president. So when you go in, I believe it's vote for 14, but we'll get our official ballot back next week to kind of go over everything.
So the part that is on the ballot that she's referring to, these are the delegates for the party that go to the convention, the Democrat or Republican convention, and once they're elected for their candidate, because this is a delegate for Nikki Haley, this is a delegate for Biden, this whatever. Once those delegates are elected, they're committed. And if their candidate does not make it during the national convention, they have to be released from that candidate so that they can vote for another one. So I think Loudoun told us there may be as many as 90 delegates on the ballot for Loudoun County. So if you have 91 and you get to vote for 14, so you want to take a look at that ballot ahead of time. Some of those names you may recognize because they might be known statewide. Otherwise, they might be local people you recognize. Otherwise, you may want to get out your Google and Google them. So,
Yes. And
yeah.
if you sign up for that app, we will notify you when the sample ballot is ready to be reviewed. So you will automatically know, hey, I need to get on there and do my research and look at the names that's going to be on there before you go in.
We want you to be aware this is going to be there so that you don't show up going, well, what do I do now? Because you want to know what this is about. The reason we don't have all these 91 people for you to hear today is because they are not elected for public office. They are elected for the conventions. So you want to hear from the candidates that will be elected, representing you, serving you, and so forth. So that's why we have who we do before you today. Yes, Mike?
Once we get the app, we'll send it out to everybody, okay?
Okay, yeah. So if anyone remembers, like 2 years ago when the judges ran, nobody was ready for that. I mean, it only happens every 8 years. How many of us had come within the eight-year period? So we were very surprised by that. So I wanted to get out there that you're going to be looking at all these names. So, okay. School board candidates, are you aware of what's in some of the books in some libraries in the state, but also in some school districts in the state in regard to pornographic material? And how do you feel about that? And what are the steps you would take in regard to something like that? And is it, all right, let's Mitch. You come first in the alphabet. We don't know, so you're first again.
Yes, I'm aware that some of those books are there. I think it would not necessarily be the books themselves. I'm not really in the market or a favor of banning things, banning thoughts, banning books. Where the issue would be, in my opinion, is what curriculum is there that would have you wanted you to have a book like that available to students to begin with. That would be my answer. That's where we need to find out how the books got there, not necessarily deciding to ban particular books. I'm not going to go read every book. Nobody can, I don't think he can expect board members to do such. But I think why they're there in the curriculum is what needs to be addressed.
I believe that also. I mean, I don't believe that those kind of books should be in schools, but I mean, there's a fine line between extremely pornographic books and stuff like that. And the stuff that we read growing up, it's not pornographic, I guess you could say, but you learn about the stuff in high school and stuff like that. But as far as it being available in a school library, I don't think that should be possible. I think we should figure out why it's even there to begin with and what it offers to the students, because I believe in a school library you should be offered educational learning and stuff like that.
Okay, so let me stick with that question just for 1 minute, ma'am. So what is your indication? Should this material be in the schools, or is it more appropriate in the county library? And if you feel it's appropriate in the schools, is it age relative, curriculum relative? What are as a school board member, what is the policy you would see created to govern this type material?
I believe that, it is something that would be, I believe age would come in a big part of it, and I believe it should be available in county libraries. If somebody wants to read something, then it should be available at the library, but I don't believe it should be available in schools. Yes, the anatomy and stuff like that should be more progressive as you go into high school and stuff like that, but it shouldn't be relevant in elementary school, because kids are just learning how to read, and I believe most of those books should be focused on education and short stories, fiction, nonfiction, and stuff like that.
Okay, Mitch?
Those books shouldn't be in school libraries, anything of that nature. It's almost like a movie rating system. If you're under 17, you can't go to a particular movie. Same should be, I don't know if this is working. I'm going to talk louder. How about that? Is that okay, Mel? Again, I'm not for banning books. If you want to put something in a county library that's available to the general public, it's up to yourself. If you want to go read something like that with someone most students are under the age of 18, I don't think those books should be there.
And audience, if you would like to see some of these pictures that are in the books, if you have not seen them before, the Government Affairs Committee has these, so if you email us, we will forward you copies. I will warn you ahead of time, you will not like them. But if you want to see what's being discussed, we'd be glad to provide the information for you. There's about 10 explicit books that are listed that are found in the county libraries here. In different parts of the state, those books are actually in some schools, and they've been actively trying to get them out. So this is a real issue. Thank you for your patience, ma'am.
Of course. I want to address the busing issue. I cannot imagine being a parent and getting a notice at 7 o'clock in the morning when my child should have already been on the bus that there's nothing there for them to be transported with. I know it's a financial issue and a recruitment issue, but what's being done to correct it?
Points. I've talked to just about everybody I could, all the way up to the governor, about this school bus situation. There's about 20 different routes right now that aren't being filled. It's sporadic throughout the community. There's bus drivers that are doing double routes, and it is for sure. They can't find people to work what they're wanting to pay. These guys are getting their CDLs, and then they're going to over-the-road trucking, making more money, which, that's fair, but it takes a special kind of person to be a bus driver. I think everybody can agree on that. They've worked on several different solutions, and I've proposed to our local representative that I know several states that surround us, the county pays for the buses and the bus drivers instead of the school board, and the employees that drive the buses are actual county employees, so they get county benefits and all that. They're not independent contractors, and all the buses are maintained and everything by the county. And I believe that would be the most well thought out solution to keep buses running and keep people in seats so that we can keep them going.
Mitch?
I'm of the opinion that it should be a state issue. That's my opinion on
A microphone does not like you,
that. It
does
does not.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say that, the reason I say I think it should be a state issue is that the state is going to dictate to us educational policy, in particular attendance policy, and maybe they should make sure that every child has the opportunity to get to school in a safe and economic manner. That's my opinion on that. Now, that won't happen overnight, obviously. I've actually spoken to Dr. Windsor pretty in-depth on this issue as well, because I know it is an issue. It's been an issue since I was a kid. I rode the late bus and wait till 45 minutes to an hour after school. Fortunately, I could walk home and be home before that. So I stayed and played basketball and enjoyed or studied or whatever, but that's not the case with all people. And it's not, I dare say, more times than not, if you want to get your answer, follow the money trail. And we probably all know that. But I dare say, in this particular instance, it's not necessarily coming down to finances. A lot of this is driver shortages. It needs to be streamlined in a manner to where we can be fair to the drivers, the pay, because it's not fair right now. It's different. Each contractor, the way I understand this, is responsible for what they pay each driver, the way the contracts are set up. So overall, I think it should be a state issue. They're going to dictate policy, and they should dictate. I don't think local schools should be in the school bus business. That's my opinion on that.
Interesting perspective. Certainly worthy of a discussion. Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I was originally going to ask you about the banning of books. I spent 35 years in a classroom and on curriculum. The book Mouse, Spielberg's book, that was all the rage last year being banned. I just wondered your opinion on that. Now, part of the argument against that book was that there was pornography in it. There was a nude female mouse. Now, I don't know, I can't define pornography as they say I know it when I see it. But I don't know if that book has come up to the school board, and how would you, if you've read the book, view that book being used in the elementary schools?
You are, Mitch.
Again, I stress I'm not for banning books. The main reason, me personally, would I want to ban that book? Possibly. But the problem with banning a book, in my opinion, is it's just going to be replaced with something else. As school board members and educators, I don't know that I would have time, I don't mean that in a tacky manner, to read every book that comes along that somebody wants to ban, nor will I. I think the issue goes back to why is it there to begin with? Because a book like you're referring to, which I'm not familiar with, but by the way you're talking about it, I probably wouldn't like it, is going to be replaced with another book just like it, in all likelihood, if someone has that agenda.
I have the same feelings about that. Books like that, I don't see a need for them in schools. I mean, there's countless other educational books and short stories and stuff like that that kids can read and learn from. So I don't see the real need for that in a school. But I do agree with that. I mean, if you take one out, it's just going to be replaced by one or two more. So I believe it's up to the teachers and all that to make sure that that kind of stuff doesn't come in the classroom.
Well, just Mouse, since you haven't read it, is a wonderful introduction to the Holocaust in a comic form. If you haven't read it and somebody comes with the proposal to ban it, which has happened in some other communities in the area, I would suggest you don't fall into the pornography with a nude mouse, and that you read the book first. That's my concern, is the school board members ban books without ever reading them.
Yes, and I'm not familiar with that book. But, I don't see why. Is there any other different books that they could read
Staying with this question for just a minute, who do you feel should have the final authority to decide which books are in the schools? So would that be the board? Do you think we should have to listen to the federal government on that? Do you think it's the teachers? Who do you think should have the final approval on what books are in there?
I believe that it would, I mean, if the federal government did it, then, I mean, it's different feelings in different states. So I believe that the school board would, I think they could handle that. And, I mean, it would be the same thing with the teachers if every teacher would have different feelings about different books. So there would be a lot of books that would get left out if it was based on teachers' feelings. But I believe if the school board took a vote on it and figured out which books need to be in classrooms, then I believe that could be handled that way.
Okay, Mitch?
You're right. It doesn't like me.
Doesn't?
Maybe I have to
Not
look
at
at you for it to work. So, no, maybe not. So things should be done on a local level. I'm not sure if the board should probably make that final decision. But again, as a board member, I don't know what board member would have time to read and research all these books. As a board, I think it's our responsibility to put in place the educators that we are confident are going to put those types of things in place that achieve our state admissions and goals. That's what I really believe the decision should be made. And we should have confidence in the people we hire and the people that are in charge of our school systems to make those decisions the way we would like them as a board should do. I don't want the federal government involved for sure. That'll be a disaster. I'd like to keep the state out of the education type systems like that as much as possible, except I wish they'd get us some school buses.
Okay. Rick?
Thank you for being here. I'm not a resident of Kahidi. I am a property owner in Monroe County. So just a quick comment on school buses. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember the parents used to carpool. That doesn't seem, again, parental involvement and lack of parental involvement. I think we have to gap these days about that. But more specifically to my, which I think is the elephant in the room, Governor Lee proposed school choice. And I'd like to hear your opinions about school choice, and I'd also like to hear your opinion about backpack money, whether the money should travel with the students. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mitch, you're first on this one.
Good hot button issue. I assume you're talking school choice. On the surface, that sounds great. On the surface, maybe school vouchers sound great. The problem, in my opinion, is that for that to work, you take from one and give to another. If you have a failing school, why are we going to take money from that failing school and the best students and send them elsewhere along with that money? Guess what you're left with? You still have a failing school. In my opinion, that's what should be addressed. Also, the way the voucher system is now, I don't like at all. What he's now proposing is to where it's available to every student, but then you go the Robin Hood approach. You supplement. You take from one and give to another. And I'm not so sure I'm in favor of that. I think when a student leaves, if you're talking the money you're talking about, roughly $7,000 goes with them and it goes to another school, and they're talking about supplementing for them to either go to a private school or school choice. It blows my mind why we want to put a Band-Aid on something instead of correcting the existing problem, which is the failing school.
I'm not too familiar on that. I haven't read up on that, so I'm not really sure what the school choice is that you're talking about. Is that
It's Governor Lee's proposal, and the proposal is that up to 20,000 students the first year would be able to apply to go to a private school or be homeschooled somewhere outside the public school system, and that those students would be given $7,000
I'm all for it. If somebody wants to homeschool their child, then I believe they should. But
Well, actually, Caleb, the proposal is not to take away from the schools. The proposal is to take $7,000 out of the general revenue, which as a homeowner and a taxpayer, that greatly concerns me. So rather than the money traveling with the student, it's taken out of the general fund, which,
Okay.
I'm not the one that's running for the school board, so I don't want to give my opinion about that.
I'm gonna have to look more into that because I
Okay.
wasn't familiar with that. I'm sorry.
All right. We will have one more question for elections, and then we will break. We'll have a 5-minute interlude where you candidates will exit, and we will bring in the 5 to 6 o'clock candidates for district attorney. So the last question for elections. Fill us in on the last day to register to vote, the last day for absentee ballots, where the early voting places are, where you have to vote election day, those kind of things.
So the last day that you can register to vote for the March primary will be February 5th. So if you have any friends or family that want to register to vote, please let them know and get them in there. There's a couple different ways they can come to our office and pick up a form. We can mail them a form. If they have a Tennessee driver's license, they can do it online through the Department of Safety. So if you have somebody that can't leave their house, they can still register to vote that way. So if you want to vote by mail, you have until February the 27th to turn in the application. So it's 7 days before the election. That gives enough time for us to mail the ballot to them and them to mail it back. They cannot come in and hand it to us over the counter. It has to go through the mail. We do have 2 weeks of early voting here in Tennessee. So that'll start on Valentine's Day, February 14th through the 27th. And we have 3 locations you can go to. You can go to the Monroe County Election Commission, Vonore Community Center, and then Sweetwater City Hall basement. We do have convenience voting in Monroe County. We're very proud of that. We're 5 out of 95 counties that have convenience voting. So on election day, before you had to go to your designated voting precinct, now you do not. So if you work in a different city or you're running errands for that day, you can go to a different location, or if they're a line super long at one location, you can go to another one. So always remember that. We have 13 precincts. I have a list of all of them out there, along with the schedules for early voting and election day. So if you'll see me out there, I'll be glad to give it to you guys.
Okay. And we'll wrap this up. I want to thank you. Yes, Mike.
Just wanted, the website, the Monroe County Commission website is an excellent website. There's a bunch of information about what Dana's talking about, and I encourage you to visit it. And hopefully, if you have questions, that site will be able to answer a lot of them.
And if not that, sos.tn.gov will take you to the Secretary of State, who handles all elections, and then you'll really be immersed in inertia. So I want to thank you for coming. One of the hardest things you can do is get up and do public speaking, and it takes a lot to decide you're going to make yourself and put yourself into the field of a candidate. So give these people a hand for stepping up and putting themselves out there for us. Thank you. Okay, we are back for the second part of the forum, and we are dealing with our 10th judicial districts, which, what is the 10th judicial district? It is Bradley, McMinn, Monroe, and Polk counties. The position we're discussing is district attorney. And so we have with us tonight Jeff Miller, Stephen Hatchett, and Sherry Taylor. And so we are going to start in alphabetical order. Jeff Miller, you get to go first with a self-introduction. Come on up. And you've got 3 to 5 minutes. Tell us who you are, why we should vote for you, whatever, and then we're going to throw questions out to you later.
H is before N.
Although, Jeff is before Stephen.
Well, it is. It is. Thank you for rescuing me. Okay, so flip a coin. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, thank you so much.
Not a problem. Happy to do it. So, as Susan said, my name is Stephen Hatchett. You'll have to forgive me, my tie's undone. I look like I've been working all day because I was in court and got done with court and I came up here. So, you didn't see any of my signs coming in. My daughter said, "Dad, why don't we have signs?" I said, "Well, did you bring them?" And she said, "No, I thought you did." I said, "Well, we got here at the same time, so how's that going to work?" So I am the only person in this race that's from Monroe County. My family's lived here for about 3 centuries, give or take. The email that I got said, "Come up here, tell us who you are, and tell you why you're running." So Monroe County has challenges, and these challenges are fairly serious. And unless you get involved in the court system, unless you become involved in the court system, you wouldn't necessarily know about it. The challenges are twofold. Number one, we have the national challenges, all right? The border is not secure. Everyone knows that. We have drugs pouring across the southern border. We have illegal immigrants pouring across the southern border. There's nothing that the district attorney general can do about that. We can gripe about it, we can talk about it, but there's nothing we can do about it. But that southern border that is pouring drugs into our communities is destroying us. Right now in Monroe County, you can buy a fentanyl pill for $2. That is unheard of. I mean, it's unheard of in modern history. And these are deadly drugs. These are drugs that are killing people. I'm going to use the date of 2014 because 2014 is prior to 22. The district attorney runs an 8-year term. So we had an election in 2014. We had an election in 2022. And from 2014 to 2022, the drug and narcotic crime violation rate in Monroe County increased almost 270%. Now, with drugs comes a litany of other crimes, all right? You all live up here, you may not know this, but Monroe County has the highest violent crime rate in the 10th Judicial District. From 2014 to 2022, the murder rate in Monroe County increased 450%. The stolen property crime rate increased 1,650%. This is not the Monroe County that I grew up in. It's just not. This is not the Monroe County that I want my family, my friends, my loved ones, your family, your friends, your loved ones to live in. I stood up in 2022 and I said, this can't be the way it is. And I was the only person that stood up to take on the incumbent because I said these numbers are failure and this cannot persist. This is not right. And yet again, we have to have another district attorney's election, and I'm going to stand up and I'm going to tell people the truth. These are challenges, and these are challenges that have to be tackled. We have to have a district attorney that has the knowledge, the experience, and the courage to stand up and fight. And you don't have to wonder whether I have the courage to stand up and fight because I was the only person that stood up in 2022 and said, these numbers are not acceptable. We need a new district attorney. And I'm standing up again saying, look, these numbers are not acceptable. I'm willing to work. I'm dedicated to work. I wouldn't be running for office again if I wasn't prepared to work. And I would appreciate all your votes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Jeff Miller, and I'm asking for your support and your vote for district attorney. I've practiced law now for 35 years in this judicial district, all over the district. The first day that I was eligible to practice law, the day I was sworn into office, I had a trial that day. And I've been in the courtroom trying cases ever since, up until this week even. So, got a lot of experience in the courtroom. I've also served, I'm the only candidate that has actually been elected to serve Monroe County before. I was state senator here. I was elected to serve 12 years in the state senate. And during that period of time, I feel like my bona fides as far as a conservative were very well formed. I was endorsed by the Tennessee Right to Life every time that I ran. I was endorsed by the NRA every time that I ran. I earned a A+ rating with the NRA. But sometimes it's not what you got like that. Sometimes it's what you fight against. And one of the things that I fought against in the state senate was a state income tax. I want to take a survey. How many of you came here from states that have state income taxes? Okay, I think most of you. And I bet that one of the reasons you picked Tennessee was because we didn't have one. Well, we had a governor and a legislature that wanted to try to pass one when I was in the state senate. And I was lucky enough to be on the finance committee when that happened. And I led the charge. I coalesced Republicans and Democrats that were opposed to the state income tax. And I led the charge to fight and defeat the state income tax, which was proposed by a Republican governor. Now, when I ran that I promised to fight an income tax because there was a lot of talk about it at that time. And so I kept my promise. I kept my campaign promise, and I fought the state income tax. I did such a good job that I was awarded for my efforts. The Tennessee Free Enterprise Coalition gave me an award. It was a golden axe for Axe the Tax. And when I was in the state senate, I sat as close as I am to Attorney Hatchett there from Marsha Blackburn. She sat next to me on the floor of the Senate. She also worked with me to help fight the state income tax, and we became very good friends at that time. She voted for me, as long as other Republican senators did, to elect me the caucus chairman, a leadership position among other leaders in the state senate. And I served in that position as well. Representative Tim Burchett was also in the state senate at that time, and he also supported me and elected me to lead the caucus in the state senate. So I have leadership experience. And the office of DA, yes, the office of DA can prosecute criminals, and it does, but it also is a very, very technical leadership position. You have to know how to herd the cats. You've got 4 counties, you've got 4 sheriffs, you've got multiple chiefs of police, and you've got to know how to coalesce everybody and get everybody, trying to get them on the same team, in the same direction. Because we do have problems. We live in a really nice place in the world, but we do have some problems that need to be addressed. The drug problem, the fentanyl problem is very, very serious. It's killing our youth. It's indiscriminate. It doesn't know rich, poor, black, white. It knows no boundaries. And we've got to do something about it. So we can't do so much about the border down in the Mexico-US border, but I can do something about the borders of the 4 counties that I'm going to be over as district attorney. The borders of Bradley, McMinn, Monroe, and Polk County, I can do something about those borders. And that's what I propose to do. My priority will be to be tough on violent crime. And I also am going to treat home invasions as a violent crime. Even though there might not be anybody present, I feel like it violates the person in such a way that it's a violent crime as well, and I'm going to treat that just like a violent crime. In the state senate, I also voted for and sponsored the first Truth in Sentencing Act. I think violent criminals should serve 100% of their sentence. Now, I voted for that, I sponsored that, and we get out, and then the courts water it down and change it. Thank you very much. I noticed I'm out of time. I appreciate your attendance today and your interest, and I look forward to talking to you further, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Sherry Talo, and I am your district attorney. I'm very excited to be here. I want to thank the Governmental Affairs Committee for putting on this forum. This is very exciting to come and talk to you about something that I love. Being a prosecutor is one of the highest honors I've ever had. I started as a prosecutor in 1994 working for Jerry Estes. During that time, I worked with law enforcement, guided victims through some of the worst times of their lives, and supported law enforcement, and held the biggest thing, holding criminals accountable. I did that until 2006 when Steve Bebb came into office, a Democrat, and I didn't work for him. I went into private practice for about 4 years, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. So I went back to prosecuting in adjacent Blount County, and I did that for a few years until 2016 when I was asked to come home, which I did, and this is my home. I grew up in Bradley County, and I have worked in Bradley, Polk, and McMinn counties prosecuting criminals, and love it. I'm just going to tell you, it's the greatest calling that God has ever given me. So I'm in my 25th year of prosecuting. I have prosecuted everything that you can imagine, from chickens running at large to first-degree murder cases. I have tried over 125 cases, about 27 homicide cases. So I'm very experienced. And I have watched over the years from when I started in 1994 until now, how we've evolved in the criminal justice system. And it has been sometimes it's a trying time because you're working with about 12 law enforcement agencies in the district. But I can tell you that the working relationship that the district attorney's office has right now with law enforcement is the best relationship that we've had in a long time. We work very well together. Law enforcement does a great job. They are more educated. They are more on the cutting edge of criminal justice. And so they are have better skills at detecting. They've got more assets in their wheelhouse to better protect our communities. And I'm proud to partner with them. And I'm very excited. They bring great cases to the district attorney's office. And one of the good things is that we start early with them. When they're in the beginning of the investigation, they're calling and they're talking to us. And it's important to have experience in the district attorney's office so law enforcement can rely on that. It's important to have experience in the district attorney's office for victims. Victims, I hope that none of you are ever a victim of a crime. But if you are, you want to be able to know that the person that is the district attorney has the experience to handle the case, to help guide you in a system that you've probably never been through before. I'm that candidate. You know, in July of this year, Governor Lee appointed me to be your district attorney. All of us applied for that, and the governor chose me to lead. And that's exactly what I've been doing, and I want to continue to do that. And so I'm asking you for your vote on March 5th in the Republican primary. Thank you.
The point is very well made. How many of us ever end up involved in the legal system? How scary it is. We usually don't even like talking to an attorney, much less finding ourselves victims of a crime or having to go through the legal judicial process. So it'll be very interesting. We do have someone that needed to leave, but because this is being taped and recorded, he's going to watch for his answer online. So his question is, Governor Bill Lee announced on Monday he appointed Sherry Taylor to serve as the next 10th Judicial District Attorney General effective immediately. That was when the governor made that announcement. Served as District Attorney General, she'll be taking over the role of DA. So, Sherry, if you had that time to do over again, would you do anything differently? To the other two candidates, what would you have done differently than she has done in the time that she's been serving? So Sherry, let's start with you and then we'll go to the other two candidates.
Suggestion?
Yes,
Your microphone seems to be working very well. Why don't we have the candidates come up to your...
come on up. Yeah, why don't we? Thank you.
So Governor Lee appointed me in the middle of July, and it has been a whirlwind, to say the least. Not only am I leading the office, but I'm also campaigning. So it's a double whammy going on, but I'm juggling that, and it's not been an issue. When I was, before I was appointed by Governor Lee, I was the deputy district attorney in the office from 2017 until I was appointed. When I worked for Jerry Estes, I was also his chief assistant. So I also carried a full caseload. So I know how to manage, I know how to make sure that the job is getting done. Since I've been appointed district attorney, we have been moving the docket forward. This is the first time in well over a year that the office is fully staffed. There are around 30 employees, and not only are we fully staffed, but we've expanded the staff. Before, we had one DUI prosecutor that handled all the DUIs for the district. When I came into the office, we were able to take that DUI position and split it into two, so we have two DUI prosecutors. So we have one that is working here in McMinn and Monroe, one that's working in Bradley and Polk, and that's been very effective. They are able to give much more attention to the cases and to law enforcement's needs as they are building those cases. We've also brought back into the Drug Task Force, which is under the District Attorney's Office, Athens Police Department. We've also added to that with the McMinn County Sheriff's Department has also added another person to the Drug Task Force. The Drug Task Force is working very diligent against those dealing drugs in our communities. Fentanyl is a huge problem. We've never seen anything like it. But they are very diligent in what they're doing to build cases and to do their best to rid that out of our community and to keep us safe. I've also, we've disposed of around, in my first 100 days, we disposed of about 1,000 cases. I didn't check to see what my 6 months is because I've been in office for about 6 months. But that's important because that's showing we're moving the docket forward. And with COVID, there was a kind of a standstill with resolving cases, because our courts were closed, but then they opened, and so that backlog started to rear its head. But we've been plowing through that, but not at the sacrifice of victims, not to the sacrifice of doing justice, because we are continuing to do that. Quite frankly, there are some guidelines that we have in the office that for certain cases that we require minimum jail sentences for. None of that has been sacrificed. Quite frankly, of the cases that we have disposed in the criminal court, 95% of those have been in compliance with those guidelines. So would I change anything that I've done since I've been in office? Add a few more hours to the day would be helpful, but no, I would just keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm being very effective at what I'm doing. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff, you would be next. And so would you have done differently and why?
First of all, it's very important to understand that our system of government, the district attorney's office, is to be elected by the people that the DA represents, or the DA is for. It's not a selection. It's not a selection, it's an election. And Governor Lee did his duty, and I applaud him for doing his duty in appointing someone to fill the spot to keep it warm until we could have an election. And that's exactly what we're marching toward, is an election. And it's the people, you folks, that get to decide who your DA is going to be, not, in all due respect, not Governor Lee. And I appreciate Governor Lee. I've supported him since he started running, even in the primary. I supported Governor Lee before he emerged from the ashes in that election. But that's the first thing. We need to always remember it's up to us, not the governor, to make our DA. Secondly, I'm not here to criticize Ms. Taylor and what she's done since she's been there. I hope that she's been working hard, and I hope that she's trying to fight crime and put people behind bars that deserve to be behind bars. But I'm here to offer what I think I have uniquely qualified in leadership abilities to lead this district. The DA's office is known as the chief law enforcement officer in the district. And I humbly approach that position, not to govern with an iron fist or to govern my way or no way, but to coalesce the sheriffs, the chiefs of police, the community, the victims coordinators, all of that, get all of that together and lead this office in a way that it needs to go. I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to do that. I've herded cats before, and I know how to do that. And I have skills to do that. And like I said, I've led Democrats and Republicans. I've led Republicans. I know how to lead. I've also been elected the Kiwanis Club president in my community. That's a group of community leaders that elected me to lead them. And so that's another indication that I know how to lead. And while prosecuting cases is important, I think Ms. Taylor even brought up her predecessor and the one that hired her, Jerry Estes, and I think he might be with us today. But I distinctly remember back in 1982 when Jerry was running for the first time, he hadn't worked for a DA's office. He had not worked as an assistant DA, and he had not prosecuted any cases. Yet he was elected, and he did a great job, and I commend him for that. But I don't think that just because you've tried all these cases and you prosecuted all these cases is necessarily indicative that you need to be the next DA. Like I said, it's a leadership position mainly, and you prosecute a few cases here and there, but it's mainly a leadership position. And to be able to get other community-minded people, the DA's office is also in charge of the programs that are offered to inmates and rehabilitation programs and that sort of thing. And to be able to coordinate that and make sure there's not duplication of services, make sure there's not arguments of toe stepping on toes and that sort of thing, that's another thing that I think that I'm uniquely qualified to do. So I'm asking for your vote and your support because of my experience. That's another thing about me. I've been elected before. I have a track record. You know where I'm coming from. You know if I've kept my promises before. And so I think that I've shown that I can do that I have done that. I made campaign promises, they were kept. And so you know that if I tell you that I'm going to do something, that I'm going to do it. So thank you very much.
Okay. Stephen Hatchett, and the question was, what would you have done differently if you had been appointed?
So one thing you all will learn, if you haven't already figured out about me, is I'm pretty much a straight shooter. I'm going to tell you what I think. And I was a vocal critic of Bill Lee's anti-Second Amendment legislation. I was a vocal critic of the executive orders. I really didn't expect to get appointed, and by golly, I didn't. I am a conservative, and I make no bones about it. I am pro-Second Amendment, and I make no bones about it. So me not getting the appointment, it really didn't surprise me, and quite frankly, I made it known right off the bat that I was running whether I got the appointment or not. Because I think it's a position that's got to be elected. One of the biggest problems we have are all these unelected bureaucrats. That's the biggest problem we have in this country. We have people who are not elected who are making decisions that affect our lives. So the appointment, I agree with Mr. Miller. We have an election, and that's why we're up here. That's why all of us are up here. It's why we're out here knocking on doors and sending mailers, and you all are getting text messages from us and all this stuff. And this is how it's supposed to be. So what would I do differently? So the first thing that I did when I announced that I was going to run as district attorney, and I started looking at the things that had happened since the 22 election, because you have to remember something. If I sound like I'm beating a dead horse, it's because in 2022 we had an election, and I talked about all the things that still exist now. Those problems existed then, they exist now. But one of the first things I did is I looked at the drug problem. And I told you what fentanyl's going for on the street. For the first time, as near as I can tell ever, 99.9% of the drugs that come into our community are imports. Okay? You don't have the meth labs rolling down the road blowing up anymore. You don't have the houses blowing up that are meth labs. You don't have the folks planting 30 acres of marijuana. You don't have that. Okay? Our drugs are imported, which means, just like any import economy, it's subject to market disruption. Two biggest disruptors that you can do to an import economy is supply and labor. So right out of the gate, I said, as district attorney, if I can prove somebody crossed a county line and is going to sell, deliver illegal drugs, the policy of my office is going to be that person goes to jail for as long as I can put them there. I talked to the legislature. I said, hey, why don't y'all codify this? It's my understanding the General Assembly, there's going to be a bill introduced that actually does exactly that, makes it law. I hope they do, because it'll work. We're going to disrupt drug dealing in the 10th Judicial District. We're going to make this a giant geographic region where people do not want to sell drugs. Because if fentanyl's going for $2 a pill here, and we disrupt it and we make that price go up, guess what? They ain't going to come here to do business. How many of y'all are ex-business people, retired business people, current business people? If your product sells for $2, how big is your profit margin? It's got to be pretty tight, right? You start hitting these dope dealers where it hurts, guess what? They're going to want to go somewhere else. I said this publicly. I stood up and I said it. And as far as I know, I was the only person in this race that has stood up and said it. And it'll work, folks. It's a good idea, not because it's mine, although I am proud of it. But it'll work. For the first time, we have a chance to make a generational change in our district. We put this in effect, and guess what? If a drug dealer goes to Loudoun County, and I'm sorry, some of you all may have folks that live in Loudoun County, but Loudoun County's not in our district. If they go down to Hamilton County, if they go to Knox County, and instead of selling to one of our kids here, they're up there doing whatever they're doing, I'm going to count it as a win. So it's not just what would you do different. What solutions have been proposed? The problems that I gave you, I didn't lie about any of that. It's public record. You can look it up. What solutions have been proposed? I would submit to you all, I'm the only person that has stood up and said, here are the concrete plans we're going to put in place to move this along, to fix these problems. That's why I'm running. It's why I'm standing up here. That's what I would do different. And it's not what I would do different. It's what I have done different. Thank you all.
Thank you. And we will take questions from the floor. So if you'll just line up at the microphone. And ladies and gentlemen, you have showed us that the old adage is true, that lawyers like to talk. So we're going to implement our 2-minute rule, because otherwise we'll only have time for one more question. So where's our timekeeper back there? When you see the yellow, you have 20 seconds left. When you see the red, Joe, you got it? When you see the red, show them the sign, show them the 20-second, and there you go. You'll see 20 seconds, and the red, you're out of time, okay? So we want to cover more than one more question. Yes, please.
if your jobs are to enforce the law, it sort of scares me when I keep hearing people say, I'm a conservative, I'm a conservative. Why should I want you applying your personal conservative views to the law? I don't even know what I taught poli-sci for 35 years. I don't know what a conservative is anymore. So all of a sudden I get a red flag when I hear I'm a conservative, I'm a conservative. Does that mean you're going to enforce the law differently? And if not, why do I care that you're a conservative?
Let's start with you this time, and we'll go down that way, okay? And 2 minutes now, watch for the yellow and the red.
I will watch for the yellow and the red. So that is an excellent question, and let me tell you what I mean when I say I'm a conservative. I believe in individual liberty. I just stood up and I said I spoke out against the executive orders in 2020 because I believe they violated the Constitution. As district attorney, your job, you swear an oath. You swear an oath to support and defend the Constitution. Okay, some of you all have sworn that oath in other settings. When I say I'm a conservative, that's what I mean, that I believe in individual liberty, that I believe that the purpose of the law is to allow us to live together in peace. Okay, that's what I believe, peace. It's what you put on the end of every indictment, peace and dignity. When you violate the law, you violate the peace and dignity of the state of Tennessee. So when I say I'm a conservative, that's what I mean. Now, does that mean I'm going to prosecute somebody that I believe is a liberal or has different views than me? Of course not, because if I do that, then what have I done? I've violated my oath. So when I say I'm a conservative, I say I believe in individual liberty. Now, I understand people may have different opinions of it. People may not like it, right? Some people may say, hey, I'm not voting for you. I'm X, Y, and Z. Although this is the Republican primary that we're here for. So let me point that out. But in all seriousness, that is an excellent question, okay? If you want to be a hammer, everything looks like a nail. The justice system is called the justice system for a reason. It's not the hammer and nail system, okay? Justice requires hard work. Let me just tell you, you want to make a difference in the justice system, you got to be willing to work hard. Oh, I'm fixing to get a card. What does that say, 20 seconds? That's what I mean by being a conservative, folks. Thank you.
It works.
Only because it's yellow and it sticks out real good.
I am a conservative, and you need to know that before you go cast your vote. I'm unashamedly a conservative. I'm a law enforcement conservative. I believe in law enforcement. You won't see me trying to defund the police. I'll be trying to help the police get the resources they need to do their job. That's what I mean by conservative. I also mean by conservative when I say I was endorsed by the NRA and believe in the Second Amendment. If you may or may not remember the case of Mark McCluskey up in St. Louis, he was living in a gated community, a lot like Kahiti. He was confronted with a group of protesters that had previously burned and pillaged and knew that that had happened. And he's standing on his porch with his rifle to guard his castle. Okay? When I say I'm conservative, Mark McCluskey would have never been charged. He was just in the news last week or so, even though he was charged by a Soros-funded DA that made the decision. That person didn't have to charge him, but they made the decision to do it. And then the governor pardoned him. Well, he's still fighting to get his gun back. That's where it comes in, where I say conservative. His gun would have never been taken away in the first place. And if it had been, I'd be fighting to get it back to him because he did nothing wrong. He did everything right in my book. So that's what I mean by conservative. Also, if you want to know about right to life and how that relates to the office of DA, well, someone carrying a baby, a fetus, if they get hurt or the fetus gets harmed in the womb at the hands of a criminal, they're going to face double. They're going to face hurting the mom and the fetus in my administration. That's what I mean by conservative.
I'm not sure that I stood up here and told you that I was a conservative. I am a conservative. I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican all my life. But as a prosecutor, I am about upholding the law. I'm about holding people accountable. That's what I'm about. I understand what the law is. I understand that, quite frankly, aggravated burglary is already a violent crime. I know that I have to work within the bounds of the law. Justice for victims is different for each case. Each case has to be looked at individually. There's no wholesale justice here. We have to look at it individually. We have to look at what is the evidence that's before us, what is the law. We have to look at what is the impact to the victim, what is the victim's input, and we have to look at the defendant. We have to look at what is this person's background. You know, we have to look at all sorts of things as we are looking to prosecute a case, as we are looking to seek justice. Where does my conservatism come into play with that? It means that I'm going to do what's right. And sometimes that's not popular, but I'm going to do what's right every time. I'm going to seek justice for that victim. I'm going to seek justice for the community. I'm going to work with law enforcement. And I'm not saying I will do that. That's what I've done my whole career, and I'm going to continue to do that. That's what I mean when we talk about conservatism.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have another question? Okay, let me just give you some statistics. Violent crime is on the rise in Tennessee. That was already referred to. Aggravated assault in 2020. In Tennessee, 543. Nationally, it was 280. Violent crime victimization in 2020, 673 in Tennessee. Nationally, 399. Homicide in 2020, Tennessee, it was 10. Nationally, it was 7. And home break-ins in 2019, Tennessee was 333, nationally 211. And this was taken off your district attorney information website. So,
The numbers you're citing, is that per 100,000?
yes, it is. Thank you. Yes, it is. And so we all know and see this, and we see it happening daily in the news that we watch. And so what would your approach be in trying to recognize programs that would have an effect on reducing this? And you want to start first this time?
I thought that was the next order thing, and I'll do whatever you say.
You're right. Let's do it. Again, 2 minutes. That worked so well.
Okay, all the statistics that you've heard, they're statistics. And I'm not confronting the fact of the statistic itself, but the DA's office can't be out there in front of the crime saying, don't do that, no. The DA's office is there to prosecute the criminals that get caught. And it's to take to trial to get a conviction, to get them sentenced to a prison sentence and separated from society. So that's what the DA's office can do. Now, all too often we have people getting caught and the arrest might not be the best arrest in the world. You've got some judges that we have to satisfy that require certain things have to be there before a person gets convicted. So the job that I would do and the proposal that I would make, like I was telling you before, leadership. Get with the sheriffs, get with their deputies, get with the chiefs, get in some training and let them know, here's what a good arrest is. Here's what I can take in front of the court to make a conviction stick. Otherwise, you've got the defense lawyers out there that are way too eager to find the holes that can be punched in the case to let the person off on a technicality. So let's, to remedy those statistics, all the DA's office can do is after the fact, after they're caught. So let's make sure that we have convictions. Let's make sure they get sentenced and separated from society. And the way to do that is to make sure the officers that are making the arrest make good arrests, and get the case built for trial.
You know, when you talk about statistics, there's more to it than just a number. There are so many things that go into the creation of that number. When we're talking about violent crime, you know, we're talking about some people that just don't have control, that make up their own mind, that act intentionally, recklessly, knowingly, and they commit those crimes. We can't control people. What we can do is do our best to support the district attorney's office, to support law enforcement, because law enforcement's on the front line. We have to be there, the district attorney's office, and we are there on the front line with them when they are coming into contact with people that are in a mental episode, when there is a domestic violence, when there is unfortunately a homicide, when there's abuse of a child, when there's a theft. It doesn't matter. We're there to support them, to provide them the legal advice that they need, to help them if they've got to do search warrants. We're there to help them do that. One of the things that we do in the district attorney's office, I do it, and some of the assistant DAs that are there, is that we teach at the police academy. So we're starting in helping in the education of these new law enforcement recruits, because quite frankly, law enforcement has just gotten a bad rap across the country. You know, one bad apple just apparently taints the whole bag, and that's just not the case here. So we need to support law enforcement. Law enforcement is doing a fine job. You know, if crime rates are gone up, that means more people are reporting. That means law enforcement is doing a better job in detecting. And then we at the district attorney's office are going to do a better job of prosecuting, because they're bringing us good, solid cases to do that.
So here's the reality, folks. Obviously, we're asking for your vote, so you hear everybody talking about statistics, but I was the only one that actually came with any, okay? I actually took the time, looked it up, made the graph so I could talk about it. But I agree with Ms. Taylor on one thing. When you've worked as a prosecutor, and I have, she has, you understand that the situation with crime, you cannot have a cookie-cutter approach. You have to have individualized justice, okay? I have a degree in criminology. I can do this stuff all day. I can stand up here and talk to y'all all day. That little yellow card and red card's great, because I'm here to tell you I'd go forever talking to you about crime, okay? So you have to have individualized justice. Now, this is a generalization. It varies, it moves. People who've heard me talk on crime have heard me say this. 90% of your crime in any population is committed by 10% of your population. Okay? 90% of your crimes committed by 10% of your population. The role of the district attorney general is to identify the people who've got to be off the streets. Okay? That's individualized justice. That takes experience, it takes knowledge, it takes the willingness of a district attorney general to walk into a courtroom, look at a jury, and say, listen, this person needs to be gone for the rest of their lives. Okay? I've made that argument. I've stood up as a prosecutor. I've done that. I've asked a jury to send someone to prison for the rest of their life. I think I heard Ms. Taylor say she had done it. It's serious business. It's hard business. But I do disagree. It's not just statistics. I'm going to have to do this quick, 20 seconds. You can get crime rates down. The district attorney general has a direct role in getting crime rates down. If the district attorney general does the job right, crime rates will go down. Thank you.
You are absolutely correct about this, the responsibility of being asking someone to put someone away for the rest of their life. If anyone's ever served on a jury, it's when you're in that room deciding what to do. I've served a jury, and it was very serious indeed. The rate of recidivism in Tennessee is reported anywhere from 50%. That is 50%? It is 50% to 67%. what would your sentencing practices be for first-time offenders and for repeat offenders? And how would you approach deals, proposing downgrading, et cetera, that we see and hear about horrifyingly all the time? Sherry, first.
So, I said before, and I'll say it again, that you have to look at each case individually. And in part of evaluating and reviewing a case, you're going to look at the person that's charged. You're going to look at whether or not they're a first-time offender, if they have any kind of record, or if they got a record a mile long. And it's important that you understand the sentencing guidelines that we have in our statutes. So it's important to know the law. There are different programs out there that address recidivism. One of the programs, and I'm kind of proud of it, is the Recovery Court. When I worked for General Estes in 2003, I was the founding team leader of the Recovery Court, and we established that. And it is a specialized court that when someone has a high risk of reoffending and a high risk of addiction, that they can come into that court, and they are accountable to the judge. They're accountable to a team that staffs and talks about their treatment. And we find that when they complete that program, which is around 24 months, that the recidivism rate for those offenders is extremely low. When I came back in 2016, Judge Freiberg, who is a circuit judge who handles criminal court, called me up and asked me if I would help expand that recovery court. And I wrote another grant, and we did, and we were able to double the amount of people that we can put into that court. I've also helped establish a veterans treatment court, which is an offshoot of the recovery court. So there are different programs that we can put these different people in to help address the issues they have to lower their recidivism. And I'm sorry I didn't get to talk about first offenders, but I'll come back to that.
Okay, Stephen.
So here is the thing about recidivism and repeat offenders just in general. As a practical matter, the peak age of criminality is 18 to 25. Now we say 18 to 25 because we don't keep track of juveniles. So between the ages of 18 and 25, the odds of someone committing a crime is actually fairly high. That's whether or not they have any interaction with the court system, whether anybody punishes them. But after they hit the age of 25, their level of criminality drops. And again, it's whether or not the court system has any interaction with them, whether anybody does anything, okay? There's a lot of us in this room, myself included, who's glad that everybody didn't have iPhones that could record everything when we were kids, all right? This fella's laughing way too hard. But that's just the reality, okay? People do dumb stuff. That goes back to the role of the district attorney general. You got to figure out what to do with these people. Are these people going to be someone that needs to be off the street, whether it's their first offense or their 50th offense, okay? Because here's the thing. The fact that this is the first time someone's charged with a crime doesn't mean it's the first time they've committed a crime, all right? You know who knows that, though? Law enforcement. You know who the best people to talk to about whether or not someone is going to be a recidivist, whether they're going to be a repeat offender? Law enforcement. I see Sheriff Tommy Jones walked in. Law enforcement officers know who the problem people are on the street, okay? When you get someone who's in court for the first time, it was always my policy as a prosecutor, that's fine, you're in court for the first time. I would go to the officer and say, okay, how many times have they done this and y'all just didn't catch them? And they know. They're like, Hatchet, they've been stealing us blind. If it's red hot or not red hot or nailed down, they've been taking it. That's what you have to do. So yeah, recidivism, there's programs, recovery courts, drug courts, mental health courts, and all those are great. But you still have to determine, is this somebody that's going to continue to be a problem? Thank you.
I do want to recognize and welcome Sheriff Tommy Jones. Thank you so much for being here, sir.
First offender or repeat offender? I think it is an individualized decision, and I think that it depends on the impact to the victim, what you decide to do. I can tell you that in my administration, that repeat offenders will get no mercy. I mean, if you've had a chance and you've blown that chance, there's no mercy. We're going after the maximum sentence for you. Now, some first offenders, we're going to take into consideration what happened, if there was a victim that was injured or a victim and what impact it had on the victim. And then this is where I agree with other comments. I'm going to listen to law enforcement. I've talked to the sheriffs in our district, and they do know that 10%. They know who needs to be separated from society, and I'm going to listen to them. Sheriff Jones knows a lot better about Monroe County and the citizens of Monroe County than I do right now, because I live in Bradley County. So I'm going to tap into that knowledge that the deputies and Sheriff Jones, Sheriff Guy, Sheriff Lawson, Sheriff Ross, I'm going to tap into that knowledge that they have about who they are arresting. So again, that comes down to leadership and being able to coalesce and get people together and then create a common goal.
Thank you. Ma'am, do you have a question? Thank you.
With all of you being familiar and prosecuting in law enforcement, I would like to know, I'm interested in knowing if you know the success rate of your prosecutions for violent crime. And if so, when those convicted are put into prison, what is the capacity now and in the future for keeping these criminals in jail and keeping them off the street so that they are not repeat offenders?
Okay. I think it is your turn, Sherry. Mm-hmm. Flip a coin.
I've not prosecuted a case yet. I've been a private practice attorney. I've represented countless individuals in court. I know how to operate in court. I know what it takes to get a win in court. I've been very successful in my 35 years. And by the way, that's a decade longer than my opponents. I've been practicing a decade longer. So I don't have a track record there to go on. That's not a big deal to me. I think that I'm still the most qualified person for this job. As a matter of fact, the DA really leads the office and goes into court on maybe 5 cases a year, is the way some of them do. But I will make that decision on a case-by-case basis.
Well, I want to thank you, Jeff, for thinking I'm that young, because I'm in my 31st year of practicing law.
25 years of prosecuting.
That's right. 25 years of prosecuting, but 31 years. There was a stint, I did a little private practice and worked at OR&L. So, but thank you. I know I look 16. So I can tell you my individual conviction rate varies between 88% and 97%. And that has been pretty steady over my entire career. That includes not just in violent crimes, but it also includes property crimes and drug crimes. Quite frankly, there was a time in my prosecutorial experience where all I did was drug cases for the district, all 4 counties, and it was quite a feat. It is, what was the rest of that question? I'm sorry, where was she?
I think jail capacity.
Jail capacity. Well, so let me say this. We do our best to ask the court to sentence, and on our plea agreements to sentence people to jail. But we don't have complete truth in sentencing. So when you tell a victim that a person's going to go to jail, prison for 5 years, That may mean that they're going to do 30% of that before they're eligible for parole. That doesn't mean they're going to do 5 years day for day. The legislature's made some strides in doing, on some crimes, making it day for day sentences, and that's great. But that's just a start, and we need more. We need to be honest with our communities and with our victims that when a person is sentenced to 5 years, that that's what they do.
Okay, we are, oh, I got ready to cut you off. I apologize. And you have the enviable position of speaking last, which is always the best time to speak.
Well, hey,
thank you, yes.
I will take it.
And then we'll be down to 3 minutes, so you're the wrap-up. Go for it.
All right. So I had to get my calculator out to try to answer the question about the successful prosecution rate on violent offenses. I'll be quite candid with you. I'm trying to remember all of the trials I've had. I've had quite a few as a prosecutor, and most of them were violent offenses. I would say, and you all can call me a liar and say I was just bragging on myself, but for violent offenses, I would be probably at about 90%. I lost 2 rape of a child cases. I say I lost them because the jury hung, and I count them as losses because the jury couldn't return a verdict. I had to try the same guy twice, and finally I just had to look at that little girl and say, yeah, we're done. Extremely brave little girl to go in there twice and look at that monster that did that to her, and after 2 hung juries, we just had to call it. So I count that one a loss. Quite frankly. Jail capacity is always going to be a problem, okay? It always will be. But I think the question, if I understood the question, was really what do you do to try to keep them in jail? What you do to try to keep them in jail is, as the district attorney, you go after the sentence that is just, that is deserved, and you go after it with swiftness, certainty, and severity. That's what you do. That's how you try to keep them in jail. You go after and you ask the judge for the sentence that that person deserves based on the facts and the law, and you make sure as district attorney you did your job. I count it as a personal failure to that little girl all those years ago that I couldn't get a conviction for her. Twice I couldn't get it. But it wasn't because we didn't try, and if we'd have got the conviction, we'd have asked for him to go to jail for about 40 years. So that's how you deal with your jail capacity. You put the people in there that need to be there. You keep them there by asking the judge to enforce the sentence that's just, fair, under the law. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, candidates. All politics is local. It starts here. It really does. So how do you get to know your candidates? This is a start. But don't let them get out of here tonight without asking for their political handouts, their business cards. Call them, invite you into their homes, have them come to your churches, and show up at other things they have planned. There's a debate tomorrow night, is there not? Where is that?
Central High School at 6 o'clock.
So find out where they're going to be, go, and listen to them again. Here's a clue for you. Does the candidate you think you like say the same thing, or does their story change from place to place because of who they think they're talking to? Really, right, guys? So this is what you learn by listening to them time and time again, the questions that are put to them. Shake their hand to talk to them. What's their handshake like, and do they look you in the eye? And do they have time to answer your question, or do you get brushed off? These are little subtle things if you've learned anything about body language. But people say to me, how do you know? You listen to them all, they all make sense. How do you know a good candidate? When you go up and you talk to them and you begin to get feelings, you know those feelings, niggly feelings we used to get? We get them for a reason. Pay attention to them. They're all good people. Qualified, experienced, they're standing up and taking the chance as being a candidate. You do your job now and get to know those candidates, but show up to vote, please. That's where it really matters. We thank you for being here. I'd like to announce that February 6th, there will be a Republican candidate forum at Tellico Village Library for Loudoun County candidates for the primary. And you will have the property assessor, and you will have 2 school board candidates at that one. So again, I thank you for being here, and have a good night, and grab them while you can.